Today I'm going to be talking about and making some applications to stop one of the worst diseases that affects my St. Augustine grass every year. And in fact, last year was the worst year I can remember on record. And that disease is called gray leaf spot. Gray leaf spot disease is a common fungal issue that affects St. Augustine grass, particularly in warm, humid climates. It's caused by the pathogen Pyrrhicillaria graecea, and it will typically manifest when outside air temperatures are between 80 and 90, combined with high humidity and prolonged periods of leaf wetness that can come from morning dew, overwatering, or both. I film out in this garage all the time, been doing it all winter, and now I can finally feel the humidity is up and I'm already sweating here right now. And it's that humidity on the rise that makes this a frequent problem in Florida, Texas, and all of the Gulf states where St. Augustine grass is typically grown. In Florida, most of the St. Augustine grass here is Floratam, which is highly susceptible, and there's also a lot of palmetto here, which is even more highly susceptible to gray leaf spot. Over in Texas, you guys mostly have Raleigh St. Augustine grass, which can get gray leaf spot, but is a little bit less susceptible than the other two varieties I just mentioned. Now, also cool season lawns through the transition zone and up into the Midwest, turf-type tall fescue and perennial ryegrass are also affected pretty bad by gray leaf spot. Okay, so let's pause for a second and actually talk about what is it that makes gray leaf spot appear in the lawn in the first place. Now, in order for gray leaf spot to show up in your lawn, three things have to come together. First, the pathogen, spores in this case, they have to be present in your lawn. If you or your neighbors had gray leaf spot last year, then you should expect it to show up again this year too. The fungus, it doesn't really form long-lived structures like the sclerotia that come from rhizoctonia, which is also known as large patch disease. But GLS, its spores, they can overwinter and linger in dormant states in infected plant debris, thatch, or at the soil surface. The spores will just lay there waiting until conditions are right, which includes, again, warmth, humidity, and then obviously a susceptible host, and then it'll just germinate and infect the plant all over again. And that brings me to the two other criteria that cause gray leaf spot. When the spores are present, you have to have a susceptible host. In this case, it's St. Augustine grass, and then the right conditions, which we already mentioned, are those higher temperatures, 80 to 90 degrees, coupled with damp and humid conditions. I stress that because if you end up with gray leaf spot in your lawn, I don't want you to blame yourself. It's not your fault if you get the disease in your lawn, but it is a decision that you'll have to make on whether you're going to treat it or not. Gray leaf spot, it doesn't typically kill the lawn, but it can cause it to thin out and slow down, and that looks really bad. But then also that allows weeds, especially in Florida, common Bermuda, to sneak in to where the turf is weak and can't help fight it off. The good news is if you get on top of it early this season, and right now is the time, you can prevent most of it from showing up, which will reduce the spread of spores. And so if you stay on top of it for a couple years in a row, you can severely reduce the risk of outbreaks going forward. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to talk all about the very best fungicides to use to prevent or cure gray leaf spot in your lawn. But before I do, I wanted to let you know I've got a free app for you. It's called Yard Mastery. And what it'll do is it'll give you a step-by-step program based on soil temperatures at your house for the entire year. Everything you need, including fertilizers, biostimulants, pre-emergents, as well as I send helpful tips and guides all along the way to help teach you what you're doing in your lawn, why, and how. And if you want to go a step further, I also have a soil test made just for homeowners. And when you take the soil test, we get your data back. It actually populates in the app, and then it'll give you a fully custom fertilizer program based on the results of your soil. That way you'll get maximum results in the shortest amount of time. So whether you want the free semi-custom program that's available to you right now by downloading the app, or you want to get a custom program by taking my soil test, I'll give you links in the description below. Join me and tens of thousands of homeowners who are using the Yard Mastery app to make their lawns greener and thicker and dominant. Now let's get right back out and find out what are the best fungicides to use to cure or prevent gray leaf spot in your lawn. Now we're going to use two fungicides, each with a distinct mode of action. We do this because lawn diseases like gray leaf spot, they're very good at adapting and overcoming the active ingredients. And so to help mitigate and manage pesticide resistance, I always recommend following what I call the bulletproof strategy, which simply means using two different fungicides that attack the disease from two different modes of action. The first and most effective is called 3336. And this is from the Cleary Chemical Corporation. Cleary's was actually just acquired by New Farm in January of this year. The active ingredient in 3336 is thiophanate methyl, which is a group 1 fungicide. Thiophanate methyl, it belongs to the benzimidazole chemical class of fungicides. Now this group, it's known for its systemic action, meaning it's absorbed by the plant and it moves within the tissues to combat the fungal pathogens. Benzimidazoles, they work by interfering with fungal cell division, so the fungus itself, it can't reproduce and grow. The second fungicide I recommend is azoxystrobin. Now, azoxystrobin, it belongs to the strobilurine chemical class, also known as quinone outside inhibitors. Strobilurins, they work by targeting the mitochondrial respiration of fungi. You may remember from 8th grade biology that the mitochondria, they're called the powerhouse of the cell. And strobilurins, they block the normal function of the mitochondria, basically starving the fungus, halting its growth and spore germination. So you have the 3336, a group 1 fungicide interfering with the cell division, and azoxystrobin blocking mitochondrial function. The two together, they do a very good job at preventing or stopping an outbreak of gray leaf spot. And today I'll show you liquid and granular options for both. With the 3336, I have here a liquid concentrate, and the rate here is 2 ounces per gallon, and 1 gallon covers 1,000 square feet. And I'm also going to tank mix along with it azoxystrobin concentrate, which has a rate of 0.75 ounces per gallon. 1 gallon covers 1,000 square feet. Now for my strategy, I do not have active disease present. I'm using this as a preventative measure, and we're gonna make 2 sequential applications 30 days apart, with one now and another near the end of May. If you're watching this video and you have active disease and you're trying to cure it, you want to use the same application rates, but just make your applications 14 days apart to give it that double whammy and really help knock it out. I have a 3,000 square foot area that I'm going to spray here today, which is my backstage and side yard over there. And so I'm going to use this backpack sprayer here, and I'll be mixing a total of 6 ounces of the 3336 and 2.25 ounces of the azoxystrobin and 3 gallons of water, and again spraying evenly across that 3,000 square feet. Couple things here: don't mow the lawn for at least 12 or more hours after the application, and there is no need to water this in. We want it to stay on the top of the leaves and near the crowns, which is where the disease is pretty much at. And you'll see I'm going to use a finer mist tip for this application, which will require me to walk a little bit slower. And then there's also the granular option, which I think a lot of you will prefer. The 3336, it goes down at 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet, so this 30-pound bag would cover up to 10,000 square feet. And then I have a bag of Scott's Disease X here, that's the azoxystrobin, and this covers 5,000 square feet. For this one, I'm just gonna be putting it down on my main stage right here, which is my brand new Viridian St. Augustine grass. Don't know how susceptible that actually is to gray leaf spot yet, since it's so new, but I'm not taking any chances, I'm preventing it. And that area there is about 2,500 square feet. And so the combination that I've showed you here today is the very best that I know of against the onslaught of gray leaf spot. But I recommend that you also read the label on each of these products because they will prevent other summer diseases that infect turf grass. And so you're getting broad spectrum coverage when you apply. Now, if you have any questions, be sure to leave those in the comments below. And I appreciate you hitting the like button while you're down there. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the lawn.